Here's a story from Grandpa for my three favorite little girls, Emma, Ayla, and Audrey. Did you ever think what it might be like to have a tortoise for a pet? I had one when I was a little boy. His name was Art. In this story, a little girl has a pet tortoise named Truman who grows very concerned when the girl goes off to school and leaves him home alone. He decides to go after her, which is a very difficult thing to do when you are a very small, very slow tortoise. Here it is. Truman. Written by Jean Wrighty, illustrated by Lucy Ruth Cummins. Truman was small, the size of a small donut, and every bit as sweet. He lived with his Sarah, high above honking taxis and growling trash trucks and shrieking cars, and the number 11 bus, which traveled south. Truman never honked or growled or shrieked at anything or anybody. He was peaceful and pensive, just like his Sarah. One day, Sarah ate a big banana with her breakfast, clipped a blue bow in her hair, and buttoned up a brand new sweater. She strapped on a backpack so big 32 small tortoises could ride along in it, but 0 tortoises did. Sarah placed 7 green beans in Truman's dish, 2 more than usual. She kissed her finger and touched it to his shell and whispered, "Be brave." Then she left. Not to worry, she'd left before, and she'd always returned. But this time that backpack was particularly big, and Sarah looked particularly pensive, and that banana, and that bow, and let's not forget about those extra beans. That's when Truman saw something he'd never seen before, Sarah boarding the number 11 bus going south. The bus roared away. Truman waited for Sarah to return. He waited and waited. He waited 1,000 hours, tortoise hours, that is, until he could wait no longer. He would go after his Sarah. He would catch the number 11 south, even amid the honking and the growling and the shrieking, even if it seemed impossible. Bonk! He bumped his head on the glass of the side of the terrarium. That's when he noticed the rocks, 3 rocks that had always been there. Ordinary rocks that now seemed extraordinary. And the arm of the couch, and the pillow prop just right, and that tall, tall boot, and the rug, that glorious, endless rug. Without Sarah, their home seemed vast and uncharted and unsettling. Truly unsettling. But perhaps most unsettling was that Truman could no longer see the taxis, or the trash trucks, or the cars, or the number 11 bus. Which way was south, anyway? Now the sun hung low, like Truman's head and heart. Just then, vroom, screech, whoosh! Up floors and under doors, Truman heard it. A bus! It was time to catch the number 11 south, amid the honking and the growling and the shrieking. Yet standing there in that ray of light, Truman felt peaceful and pensive and brave. But just as he was about to slip under the door, through that opening barely the size of a small tortoise, Sarah! She spotted him shining like the sun. "Truman!" she cried. She scooped him up and said things like, "Oh my goodness!" and "You!" and "How did you ever?" and "Amazing!" Sarah kissed her finger and touched it to his shell and tucked him back safely in his tank, where he was peaceful and pensive and proud. And later, just before bedtime, she read him a story. Now Truman knew that one day soon he and his Sarah might travel south to see new sights and hear new sounds and think new thoughts together. And that's the end of the story. One time, a couple of months after Dickens, my greyhound, first came to live with me, that's his photo on the screen, we had a heavy wind one night that banged open my backyard gate without me knowing it. I let Dickens out into the backyard the next morning, as I always do, not knowing the gate to the alley was open, and when he didn't come back in after 5 minutes, I went out to look for him. You can't imagine how upset I was when I saw that Dickens was gone and the gate to the alley was standing open. Unlike Truman, the very slow tortoise, Dickens is a retired race dog and he can run very, very fast. In 5 minutes he could be just about anywhere. So I grabbed his leash and took off running down the alley, calling his name as I went. I took the path he and I normally took on our morning walk through the neighborhood, hoping that he would go to familiar places. But after 30 minutes of running and calling his name, I hadn't found him. I decided that I needed to go home and get the car so that I could more quickly cover more ground. Imagine my surprise, delight, and relief when I walked up to my front door and found Dickens sitting on the welcome mat waiting for me. He had simply gone out the back gate, trotted down the alley and around the block, and found the front door to our house. He had such a big smile on his face that I could tell that he was very proud of what he had done. I could almost hear him thinking, "Hey, Larry, did you see what I did? I went all the way around the block by myself and found our front door. What took you so long? I've been waiting for you." I was so very, very happy that I gave him a big hug and brought him inside and gave him his favorite treat. Then I went out into the backyard and put a big padlock on the gate so that I'd never have to worry about him going on a solo walk again. Of course, then when we got Dory a year later, she actually jumped over the 6-foot wall in my backyard and went on her own solo walk, but that's another story. Always remember that Grandpa loves you, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.